Hi. Have you ever asked the question, how can I be more valuable? It's a weird question, isn't it? But we often think about it with our teams or anybody we employ because we want the most valuable person in that role to do the best job for us. But sometimes we forget, I can improve my value. And if you're interested in improving your business or improving your career, moving up the career ladder, then these videos, part 1 and part 2, are for you. And what we found is that there were 2 highly requested skills. Well, one was requested, the one a lot of people ask us for. And the second one, once we explain from observing them and working with them what they could do to improve their value, as soon as we explain it, it's almost like, I didn't even know that existed. Didn't even know I could really do that. But absolutely, yes, that would be so valuable. So we're going to be looking at these 2 different, really valuable skill sets. And if you've got imposter syndrome, these are often the ones that come out the most when people have had imposter syndrome, when they've held themselves back unnecessarily because they've doubted their value. So you don't have to have imposter syndrome to work on these, but it's a very, very common correlation because people have held back so much, and then catching up and being good at these 2 things is incredibly useful. So what are they? Well, the first one that's often requested for us, can you help me with this, is actually being a higher level influencer. The ability to get people at the top of the tree to listen, pay attention, consider your thoughts and ideas to the point where they trust you to come up with something, They look to you and your intelligence and your experience and your knowledge and say, well, what do you think? So the aim of it is to be, not just to be better, more skillful at being an influencer, to actually put you in a position where you are the go-to person. So this is a very, very common skill set that people are asked for. And the second one is to be able to think more commercially or more entrepreneurially. So these skills become more and more critical the higher up you go in the business, or the bigger the business becomes if it's your own, or even if it's not your own. These are very, very valuable skills. So in this video, we're going to focus on influencing, being a high-level influencer. And in part 2, which you can find in YouTube, and if you can't find it, just send us a message and we'll send you the link. We're going to look at more about being more commercial in your thinking, more entrepreneurial. So let's get on with the first one. Become a high or higher level influencer. It's one of the most crucial skills in business because at the top level, your job as a leader, as a manager, is to create leverage of the people around you, your team, the ability to get more done through the people that you're interacting with. So this is about changing your definition of work almost. And we have this conversation a lot because most of us are taught to do things, to do tasks, even at the manager level, to be in control of things and control of the processes. Most of us come up from, learning to be good at what we do, or controlling what we do in terms of systems and people and processes. But the higher up you go, it's more about getting your ideas and experience and your direction and the leadership and motivation through the organization, across the organization, and crucially upwards as well. So this is what we mean about being a powerful and confident influencer, not just on Instagram. We're not talking about Instagram. We're talking, but that's an example where someone has the ability to say something on Instagram and be an influencer, and lots of people follow. So within business, it's a crucial skill because this is what we're talking about, real leadership. Rather than spending your time doing lots of things that we've been trained to do from an early age and the amount of tasks you do, it's all about the leverage you can create through your ideas and your impact by being an influencer. So therefore, the ripples of what you do become bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is what we mean by being an influencer. So it's the skill that unlocks success at the highest level of business. It's about getting your ideas to be listened to, and even to be the desired person that someone will go to and say, what do you think? That's when you know when you've really done it. But a lot of people we're working with have either held themselves back because of imposter syndrome or lack of confidence to speak up, and they need to catch up and become the influencer because their skills and their knowledge and experience is excellent, but they just never let themselves be heard, especially at the level they should be being heard at. So having the confidence and ability to work with and influence and frankly deal with highly driven people is essential. And especially if you're working for someone who's very driven, highly entrepreneurial, their time, the way they don't have much time to listen a lot of the time. They're busy, or they have such a strong belief in their own ideas. Sometimes being able to influence them, get them to listen to another way of doing things, which could be better because you've got the experience and knowledge of how to do that, that can be hard. And this is what we're talking about. It's almost like, how do you influence somebody who is not very good at listening to other people? So sometimes the most amazing entrepreneurs and bosses are often not very good at listening to other people. They're brilliant at what they do, but they need your help. So this is what we're talking about, having that confidence and ability to do this. So it can be frustrating when you know you've got the skills and experience and the knowledge to make an impact, but your voice for some reason gets lost or you're not taken seriously. And it's very frustrating. We work with a lot of people who are like, how can I get my ideas over? Well, there's 4 things you need to do, really. And luckily, influencing is a teachable skill and you can learn it. So let's look at these 4 things. First one, as I said before, remove any doubt of your own value. This is imposter syndrome. And am I good enough to be listened to? And this is the biggest thing that holds people back. And this is why being an influencer, wanting to be more of an influencer after you've dealt with imposter syndrome is such a common thing we get asked for. It's the next step because they're frustrated. They know they're good at what they do, but they haven't let themselves say anything simply because of excessive doubt that's come from somewhere. So step number 1 is, have you got imposter syndrome? And I'm talking about that we all got little doubts about ourselves and we all think, am I good enough? But I'm talking about imposter syndrome to the point where you just really hold yourself back. You're not in the career position you should be. I've just spoken to somebody just before recording this who's held themselves back and stepped down from jobs that they were struggling in because they didn't believe in themselves, but they're really talented. It was the belief in themselves that got in their own way. So number 1, get your imposter syndrome sorted out. Give us a shout. We can help you with that. That's the first thing we often do with talented people. The second thing is about skills. To be able to read and understand people's thinking by observing their behavior and speech. So by looking at their behaviors, what they say, how they say, even on emails, even on texts, be able to read people and then understand it. So one of the most common things we do then is teach people almost like the language, the alphabet of understanding people. People broadcast everything about themselves all the time. If you don't understand how to read them, then you're going to have trouble being an influencer. And especially if you have come from a technical background. So you know the language of your technical skills, but have you learnt the language of people skills? So the first thing to do is get rid of your imposter syndrome. Second thing is have the skill set and the knowledge and the alphabet so you can then understand what people are thinking and why they're making those decisions, why they're behaving the way they're behaving. And that's just understanding how people think at a very practical level. I'm not talking about psychometrics. I'm not talking about taking tests. It's about sitting in a room with somebody and watching them and thinking, why did they choose to pick up on that point and completely ignore that point? And being able to understand and work that out in a live, real time, which you can do with your peers, you can do with your boss, you can do with your team, because it applies to every human being. It's actually pretty neat when you learn it. Number 3, enhance and expand your communication style and skills. Now you've got out your own way, number 1. 2, you understand how people think and behave. So therefore you can use this to expand your communication style and skills, because before you were working in a particular way, you behaved in a particular way, you communicated in a particular way. Now you can have a much bigger range. And to be honest, a bigger range of how you communicate, depending on who you're communicating to. The more range you can have, the more control you have as being an influencer, because you can pick the best way for the situation. So this is, again, it's about skills. Number one, get out your own way. Get your imposter syndrome or sort it out if you have it. Second one, have the knowledge so you can have the skill to read people. Number three, be able to now take that and be able to have multiple ways of communicating in the right way for that person or that group, so they will want to listen to you. And then the fourth one, which often is a surprise to people, is actually design and promote your new personal brand, especially if you've been holding back for a while. We work with people on this, and if you think about this, this is marketing. But how many people do personal marketing? Now, if you're a consultant, you'll have done that. But if you're, running your own company, or you're working, coming up the ranks, and you want to get promoted to a senior level, very rarely do we think, how do I come over as a brand? How do I come over as a person? Now, this is not being false, but it's like, well, are you an influencer? Are you a worker? Are you known as a technical specialist? Are you known as someone who holds back? Are you known as somebody who can't handle confrontation? Are you someone who is confrontational? So when have you ever designed and promoted your own personal brand to fit the level you want to be working at? So these are the four core things that we help people with. And when you put all these together, you may not need number one. Number two, number three, number four, absolutely necessary. Number one, if you have imposter syndrome, we can skip that if you don't. But when you're designing and promoting your own personal brand, it's like you're almost like reinventing who you are. Still got to be you, but how you come over, what level of gravitas, what level of confidence, how do you want to be seen within the company? And this can all be done. So these are the four things I recommend you think about to be a really, really good high-level influencer. Get out your own way, number one, if it's necessary. Number two, really understand people. And the amount of times I've had conversations with people who said, you know what, it's crazy, I've never learned that. And I'm leading and managing 10 people, 20 people, hundreds of people. And just think, why have I not learned this? Well, that's why we teach it. Number three, expand your communication styles and skills. And number four, be in control of your brand. Think about any company that is successful. They spend a lot of time thinking about their brand. It applies to you personally too, as you're working on your career or promoting yourself or how you behave as a leader within a business. So if this has made sense to you and you think, you know what, I need to chat about this because it would be valuable for me to do this, then get in touch, either in, email us straight to inquiries, or book a call at Certain Change. And then what we'll do is we will get back to you and we'll sort this out really, really quickly, because it doesn't take long to learn this. But if you don't do it, you don't get to be that influencer that you should be. So thank you for taking time. I hope this has been useful to you. And if you want to move on to the second one, which is all about being a commercial thinker, this is very, very valuable too. And we can work on all of this together. Just get in touch and we can have a chat about what's the best plan for you. Thanks for your time. Take care. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.